Okay, moire von der Boysa, so nach seiner Zeit Schedule, Erev Shabbos. Mein Parshas Azini die Woche, und es ist also du a Shabbos zwischen, jeden Mal du a Shabbos zwischen dem Kippur und Sikkes, lernt man Azini. Und es ist damals verscheiches mit der Zmans, und es ist, der Maße, das ist nicht keine Schiga, eine Idee, das ist eine ganze Zeit, Thomas lieb zu sagen, als der Parshas so zu tun mit der Zman, was sie ist, Parshas Shune, im Kippur, Sikkes. Aber wenn man kommt zu der End, ist es ein bisschen alderig abschat, weil so ist der Bruch hat nicht kein Parshas, so ist der Bruch lernt man Simchas Teure, and there's a reason, das heißt, mit stadig in der Parshas, alles gedaan, man kann umkommen, so ist der Bruch, was man lernt Shabbos, yeah, English? You want English? I should say in English? I don't even know. I'll do something in between. English is English. So that's a Bruch we line on Simchas Teure. So all the Parshas that lead up to it are actually Api Pshat. Api Pshat from the Mesadra Parshas. This is it's the old Minix, and it's from today. It's since in Bubal used to do that, even though it's a little different Mahalach, but it's very old. And it actually has a shaykhs with the like the end of the Torah, and you get a brucha for that, brucha Torah, and it has a meaning at the end, meaning so it's not just in the end as the cutoff. Moshe Rabbani died, so the Torah ended, stopped being, but it's actually the last few parshas of the Torah are actually trying to move us towards a place where like the Torah ends, where it means Moshe Rabbani dies, which is actually the same thing in the same concept if you think about it. And it moves us toward like it's the end of the year and the new year starts, so it's all about the same thing, and not only in like a drish that can mekashes on the parshas to the side Rami Adam, but to them as they call Pipshas. So Chazan the Sfasema says like that the end of the period is short parshas. The last 3-4 parshas are very short, extremely short, like it's a third of the regular parsha. And he said that because the Torah is kili of Sidra Torah, like Bereshis is about the Friedige Torah, the people of Bereshis, and etc. And then the end of the Torah, like looks like there's Achres Hayomim, there's Achres HaTorah. And Achres HaTorah is wegen the mention von Achres Hayomim. And it's also a Pipshat, like he says, that the Torah, Moshe Rabbani is talking about Achres Hayomim, and he said, similar to the end of Parshas Bereshis, where Yaakov when he said, Alfi v'gidu lechem, as ishikra eschem be'Achres Hayomim. The end of Sefer Dvurim, Moshe Rabbani had beferishlen v'yaylich, which is the Akdoma to Azini, he says, I know that I'm going to die and there's going to be something after this, and therefore I'm giving you this Vanza Shira, the Fun of Light. So the Zama Zuk, das ist a kleine Pasha, das ist kleine Teure, kleine Menschen, I come out kleine Pasha. But I think that it's all Pshat because it's Yom Tov, we don't have time, so it's Erev Yom Tov. So, everyone is busy with Rosh Hashanah and Kippur Sikkes. We can't give us a whole parsha to learn in this week. So we make small ones so we can bite size, and at least continue this either. And the only kasha on my theory is that Parshas Bereshis doesn't stay with my theory, because Parshas Bereshis is one of the longest parshas in the Torah, and we read it often Matzah Simchas Torah, and it's like one day, sometimes not even one day, of to learn it over the week. But I have a teretz on that, as you always talk about Parshas Bereshis, that tun nicht tragen, because the Matzah Bereshis is a sod. Ein Dorsh from Matzah Bereshis, but we skip basically that parsha. Anyways, that's not Lina 90, so that's all. So, that's the Akdoma. Moshe Rabbani gave this lecture, this poem, as Shira Hazini. And Moshe Rabbani said, V'idabam is Hashmayim V'ur Suretz, and Rashi in the beginning of Hazini says, like this, what does it mean even, this concept of V'idabam Hashmayim V'ur So Rashi says as well that if if he would say then they would say, okay, Moshe died, and nobody could really give the Eidus. There's nobody alive to show them that they're not listening to the Torah, or they are listening to the Torah. So it's as long as there's a world, at least there's Shemaim Vuretz. And Rashi is emphasized that this actually means the Bruch HaKluz, that the Shaidim, and that means that it means actually. Rashi don't say that it means. Rashi says that and the item has the other item be tiva the shine. If the Yidden zindigen, then the items and the erste, the Shmaim listed nas Yavila, the Shmaim is not going to rain. That's the ides of Shmaim Vuretz. But that's only like a din of the other items tiva the shine. But the ekar ides is that it's something that lasts forever. Now this is a very weird. It's we have to go into it and understand it, because people die, but the Shemaim Vuretz are alive. Yeah, but on the other hand, people could actually give Eid And Shemayim V'Uretz can't give Eidus. They just doimim. They just silent things. They don't give any Eidus. So what does it even mean? I'm going to die. Okay, so I found something to be ma'ed. The Shemayim V'Uretz. So macht keinen sense. And the Masse, if we look at Al Pi Pshat, so the Ramban already and the Even Ezra, Ramban says the Even Ezra is right Al Pi Pshat last week. That Ksivim Yitni Adayim B'chol Dov Mitzvah, B'chol Dov Shekayla. This is like in English I would say it's a poetic metaphor, it's a poetic language. But the Psikim, that Tanakh always has this minig of he's looking for Eidus. Now what does it mean actually, looking for Eidus? I think that it's not only not as simple as I'm looking for someone to prove. Like the book, you can say the book is a proof. Like Vanza Shira is the Funav La'id. Okay, there's a book. But what we mean when the Pusik means that what the Pshat of the Ramban and the Even Ezra, that it's a nisach, it's like a poetic metaphor of saying that I need Eidus. What it means is that whenever I talk, we speak about this a lot of times. Whenever I say something, anyone could say. Talk is cheap. Everyone can say whatever they want. So you need something to prove. You need something to underwrite what you say. And there's a lot of ways of underwriting. People use a lot of, we call it proof, but it's not about proof. It's about underwrite, like a toike. Everything needs to be mekiyim. Like there's a concept of star, that's not mekiyim. Ich stab a star, okay, wer das hat geschrieben, hat Chaim geschrieben. Needs to be mekiyim. And there's written, Eidus miskayim b'choismo, Eidus miskayim b'chasima, Eidus miskayim b'mesira. There's something that has to be mekayim. Everything that you speak has to have something that's mekayim. And it's something that gives it just toike, or something that gives it a, how do we say in English? Something that underwrites it, or something that is ma'asher it. Like it says this is something real. And this is actually a problem, because it depends what you talk about. And this is continuation of my shmis from last Erev Shabbos. When we talk about cars and buses and trains, then we don't really need to prove that they're a thing. That the words, they represent them, and everyone knows what they are. But when you come and say, ich will sagen, Azina Shmaim, the Polish Rebbe said, Azina Shmaim, Himmeldige der Herr. Moshe Rabbeinu will sagen, that's not simple. It's talking about some kind of there's a different order to the world than the one that we see, and he gives a history lesson basically, and he's not trying to give a history lesson. There's all kinds of silly history teachers that like to say that that they have to learn history, but it's actually things like it. He's trying to reframe the entire world history and the entire personal history, if we're talking about the Parsha and the year, in a different way. And whenever you say this, it happens to a lot of philosophers and people that try to actually say something, people or poets, and everyone comes and says, okay, like how you said, it's just words. Words, Shakespeare said. It's just words, and you don't have anything to stand. This doesn't stand on anything. There's nothing to make the words real. There's nothing to undersign your words. Like, okay, you're giving me a star. There's a shir as a star meskayim. So who's mekayim the star? Who's mekayim the star? And there's various different ways that the psikim use. For example, I was talking about Shira many times. Shbati eschem b'nois Yerushalayim b'tzvois b'aydes hasud. And Chazal say it's a shviyah. I hope the guys nicht folgen an die Maskele sagen, but the pshat is that he's like trying to shviyah, and this is something we call in the Kitas Chaifet of a shviyah. Shviyah mit asafet oich, shviyah b'chai roishi. What it means to say when I say chai roishi is that I'm being mekayim my words. I'm saying, giving my words the power, the kiyum of my life. I believe in this as true as my life. I want to say this as true as my life. So, this is the concept of Eidus. It's similar to the concept of Nakitas Chayvetz of a Shviyah. This kind of Eidus that it's talking about here. What it's saying is, I'm telling you something, but I have an Eidus for it. I have something that makes it. I have something that's mekayim the Eidus. I have some bezn. I have some chav Eidem of them. Ve'idli Eidem namunim is a allusion of the Lowy. I have something in the reality that shows this, that proves it, that gives it a kiyum, that gives my words, that makes my words not some words, and gives them Richa Kodesh. And in general, a Lowy doesn't really have this problem, because the Lowy, there's something that is Mekayim is Eidus, and he always says, Koyim Rashem. Koyim Rashem is like Koy, like he's chapping on, or Moshe Rabbeinu is Stab Bezerdo, but it's even more stronger way of chapping on. He's saying, my words, they're alive, they're real, because God said them. And that's the Eidus, and that's actually what Rashi means when Rashi says that Ili Haid Bem Dova Shekam. That the Pashtus on Eidus. What is my Eidus on the Moshe? What's the Eidus on the whole Torah? The Eidus on the whole Torah is Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he says, Koyim Rashem, the Eidus Vaydabra Vayil Moshe Leimer. The Eidus that get, and you all see it. Atem Reisem K'Meshmayim Devat Himochem Bahar Sinai. This is the Moshe Rabbeinu's life. Moshe Rabbeinu's personality is the Eidus, is the undersign, or is the thing that signs the whole Torah, that gives it a kiyum, a toikef. Now there's a problem that Moshe Rabbeinu dies, and everything that's mekiyim by living people, which is a very important way of being mekayim things, doesn't live forever, and it can be marchiv on this concept to a lot of different ways. Like you could say, I know ani yadati ki gudel Hashem because Rosh Hashanah I saw God, or something like that, and that thing dies. In other words, because you are not toilet in anything else. You are toilet in the certain inner experience, and certain inner truth, or even a proof, like intellectual proof or spiritual proof. And that's the thing that dies. That's the thing that always and it always dies. And there's a trick, and the trick is actually, I think that Rashi is not being cholik on the Ramban that says that it's poetic language. He's just trying to, he's a part of the poetic language. So in other words, sorry, this is another. Sorry, 1 sec. So Rashi in general, when we read, there's two ways. The Mefarshei Pshat, the thing with them is that they're not part of actually the language of the Torah itself. That, like in Mushal, the Torah is Divrei Torah Kelushim and Udam. So when you have Trishim, Al Pi Pshat, the Rambam, and the Ibn Ezra, and the Ramban, even they're going to say, okay, the shtickle pusik is the Stamalz and Kelushim and Udam. They say it's not the pusik itself. But Rashi, which is why Rashi is so important to Nachman Breslev said that Rashi is the Torah's brother. He's not my father. He's a brother from the Torah. Because Rashi is actually continuing the same language. When you read Rashi, you could read it not as someone from the outside reflecting on the text. He's actually continuing the text, and whatever metaphor, whatever mushal the text is going to use, he's just continuing it. He's not saying, there's the mushal and the nimshal is a zoy na zoy. There's kenstat hinoch Rashi, and the Rashi itself needs a perish the perisha, because he never goes out of the actual world of the text. He's actually continuing, and the Medrash in general is what does this, goes in this mahalach. And Rashi, when he says that this is the idol of Kain Loidim, he's explaining the world, the metaphor itself. He's not trying to say that it's not a metaphor, that it has a meaning. He's not trying to say the nimshal. This is not a machlok, is what the nimshal is. This Rashi is a chova of the mushal, of the language of the Torah itself. And what this language does is similar to like someone that's going to say, someone has a revelation, and he always takes a simon. There's a famous Ramban that the Chassidus Surim like to, not the Ramban, the Ezra, who wrote the Persian, Ramban. And he said that in theory, even Torah, it's part of that pusik that we discussed before. And he says, Atchatechpat is Mlishan Chayfet, that in order to make, according to my Pshat, and actually if you look in the source, it says it that way. If we're trying to make the Sgalis into something real, it needs to be Atchatechpat. So in other words, I could say, like the end the Gemara, by Shaim Elim Achayrim Leisaskiri, and that's the Chlein from the Begdishan. The Gemara says, what does it mean Shaim Elim Achayrim Leisaskiri? Don't mention the name of a foreign god. It means, don't say, you wait for me, and this is a landmark. You're going to wait for me in the side of this and this Avedazura. That's a usa, because that's clearly giving a toikef la'alilim. Because in other words, you're using the church, you're using the church or the Bais Avedazura as a landmark to be mitzvah something else. Like this is already something real, something that exists, and now we're looking for how do I tell you where to go? I don't have a map, I don't have ways yet. So I tell you the landmark, I tell you go b'tzad the place. This is Isef and Hashem Elim Achayim Leis Eskiri. And Begdishe with Atchatechpat is dieselbe Sache. Das heißt, einer sagt, wie trefft man Gott? B'tzad HaSikker, b'tzad HaLilev, b'tzad HaShoife. This is the opposite. This is the B'chol Mukim Asher Askres Shemi Ova Elechu Verechtechu. When we take different things, it's not the actual Galis. In other words, when we often there's a solution, Moshe Kibbel Torah Sinai. What says Sinai? It's a Kibbel Torah, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Via Gvira. Sinai is like the Tzad of the Zureploinus. Sinai is the place where it was, this Har Sinai. And we say the Moshe Kibbel Torah Sinai. What we're actually, the reason we're saying that is because to say Moshe Kibbel Torah Elikim, you have to see God, but we don't. We're not there. Moshe Rabbeinu died, but Sinai actually still exists. You can actually go visit it if you want. Now Sinai still exists. So Moshe Kibbel Torah Sinai is using Sinai as a landmark, as something that became the chayfet of the Torah. It's a chefza of the Torah, and this still exists. And this reminds us. This Kili has the Kabbalah language would be that has the roishim of the kedusha, the shoyrigman of them. It still exists. And now what Parshas Azini does is something even greater. What Parshas Azini is doing is actually it's saying, the mushal from them is, the tzir that I have for this is, someone that was in Zboide, they gewangen Triefes Baddes, and ich weiß was ein Besmeiderisch, and he learned Zohire Kudish, and ich scheiße Tiefes Furim, and unkommen zu etwas, and he found God, he found some truth. And then, he knows that he's dies. Moshe Rabbani, Yidati Achem, you're gonna die. So what he said is, then he looked out the window, and he saw mountains, and he saw trees, and he saw clouds, and he saw water, and he saw all kinds of things, and in nature. And he said, my revelation is actually in the nature. I'm Mayid, Kol HaToyre Kille Shalich, when Leigaran, mein ganze Teure, Leigaran, in the Shemaim Vesuret, nicht in a Stickel Chemisch, nicht in a Stickel Kigel von der Rebbe, nicht in a Schäufe, all these things. Okay, if you can go out of this message, you can go into the real world, and they don't have any of these things. But the thing that still exists in the real world, that you can't go away from that, is the Shemaim Vesuret. So it's like Emily Dickinson said that her church is her garden. She didn't like to go with the church. As she said that the garden, the chazan from the garden is Kaimel Shmit, is Afeigel, is the chazan from the Church of Nature. And the chazan of the famous poem, I forget what it's called, and the chazan of the choir of nature, which is the birds that sing every morning, but that doesn't mean that there's we should worship only the God of nature and not the God of revelation. That's right, but what I actually say is that Moshe Rabbani was at the Gatin, ich meine, they start in Filins, was Emes, and Tzavtzudik, and Hazini, and from Name Farish, Alpidarki, is that he put his whole revelation, he put his whole, whatever he was massig, Pnimi, that rangelagt in the Shemaim Vesuret. And yeah, look there for the Eden, for Ida Bamas Shemaim, Hazini, Shemaim Vesish Muret, ich red not Filins to Eng, ich red nicht to the Id, ich red nicht, Eng, you're gonna die, you're gonna get somewhere. But what I'm talking to is the Shemaim, Hazini, Shemaim Vesish Muret, ich red the Himmel und der Erd, nee, jetzt, die ganze Himmel und der Erd, wie man kickt in the Himmel und der Erd, seht man Hazini, Shemaim Vesish Muret, so man can say, or it means, looks differently than it looks in Har Sinai, than in Mishka, and Oil Moed, seht sicher anders. Aber das ist eine Sorte des Galles, eine Sorte Teure, was ist allemal du, es ist keimel du, was je keim leolam, because it's Azini Yashmaim Vesish Meuretz. And this is the größte Glick, the größte trick that Moshe Rabbani did when he was Mayit Shmaim Veuretz, which is keim leolam. Also this is nicht das Sachen, man darf lernen, man darf davenen, man darf noch kicken auf den Himmel. Man darf noch kicken auf den Himmel, und dann sieht man die ganze Teure von Moshe Rabbani, was hat Mayit gewesen, die ganze Teure in the Shmaim Veuretz. That's the Teure for trying to reconnect. Und ich meine, als eine ähnliche Sache kann man sagen auf die Mann. Das heißt, es du Rishuni am Kippur. Rishuni am Kippur sind ein Primisdik Yom Teufel, sei Primisdik. Das heißt, they don't happen. There's something very weird about Rishuni and Yom Kippur if you think about it. Because all the Yom Teufel are Leiche Litis in Tzrayim, Leiche was Matke, ich weiß nicht, whatever it was. And we need to say it's recording something that happened. Where did it happen in this world? Where was it Tis in Tzrayim? In Egypt. Ich meine, es ganz geil. The Shoni Yom Kippur didn't happen. What's the story of the Shoni Yom Kippur? The story is that the Eibishter is on Himmel, his Dan, his Moichel, these are not real things. These are things that happen only in someone's mind, in someone's in Har Sinai. Now, after the Shoni Yom Kippur, kommt das Aschale, was Gedati Achrei Mosi, Gehashich Zes Christen. Zog the Teure, zog the Mitzvah, Gai Rosen Drosen, and Bo a Sikke. And a Sikke is supposed to be a very natural thing, very, very similar to, very like Church of Nature kind of thing. It's saying, sitzt nicht im Besmeider, sitzt nicht, kick nicht ran, sieh nicht Gott nach Sidde. The Sidde, you close the Sidde at some point. Gai sich in the Goyren Viekev, and the Sikke, and the green things, and the Gruz, and that is either one of this macht man as we a real thing, that it's the same picture, the same thing as the Shuni Yom Kippur, nor na Weg was the Kinder can noch sehen, man kann reingehen mit dem mit der Boot, but it's either one of the Shemaim Vesuretz, and the Shemaim Vesuretz is the Sikke, the Deutschen Sikke, was dann so the Shemaim Vesuretz, the Leben zu Mayet, the ganze Sache von the Shuni Yom Kippur, was ist a Pnimi, is Chaf, als man geht umkommen zu dem, man geht kennen hören, Hazina Shemaim Vesish Meuretz. It's not even us to hear. The Himmel and Eden and everything that is, and everyone should have a very sweet Shabbos and enjoy.